Well, hello everybody. Every year the school that my daughter goes to, the classes put together some form of an art project and they auction them off to raise money for the school. They asked my wife for my daughter's class to come up with an idea, and here it is. She went down to a local glass company and had all these little squares cut out, and then got a bunch of these little shards of glass, and the students each had a square, and they positioned whatever they wanted on each square, and they used hairspray to hold the pieces on, and then she transported them back to the glass company, and they laid them on this bigger piece of glass, and they fired and melted everything together. So it's pretty neat. My daughter's 6, and these are the things she's getting to experience. When I think back to being her age, construction paper and paste seemed to be the highlight of my day. I've been tasked to create the stand for this, which is going to be made out of steel. So we're going to get underway with it and make this a finished piece that they can auction off. Okay, my wife and I collaborated, and this is what we came up with. This is just going to be made out of 5/8 weld steel. I'd considered welding this together originally, but I wanted it a little more clean, and my welding skills are lacking at best, so I elected to fasten everything together. So this is just the general rundown of it. I'll go ahead and hide this glass here so you can kind of see how it's going to be supported. It will slide down in this slot. There'll be 2 fasteners in here on the top bracket, and then this bottom bracket, you see the slot stops right here, and that will hold the bottom of the glass, and it will have 2 fasteners in it as well. There are fasteners that are going to come up from the bottom here and here. Some of the features are not in here. There was no point in drawing them out because I just know they're going to be there. And then you can see how this piece is actually saddled over here, and then there is a piece cut out here so it will saddle over this cross support. I am going to start with these 2 pieces here, these brackets, all 4 of them. I was originally going to show all the milling setups, lathe work and stuff like that. I thought I had another week or so to complete this before the auction, but apparently they put them out on display for a week or so prior to the auction, I guess, so people can see them. So I'm just going to have to show the befores and the afters because it was actually due today, and I'll finish it today, but it'll be in on Monday. It's Friday now. So here's a quick shot of the top bracket. Very simple. Just a slot that runs through it, a counterbore hole, a through hole, and that's that. And then the bottom bracket is pretty much identical with the exception of this area not being taken out. Everything else is the same. Alright, well, I've got these 4 braces made. Hopefully you can see the features in that now. Like I said, I just use what I call just weld steel, 5/8. This stuff is really gummy. It doesn't like taking surface finishes. Hopefully you can see the tear out here and there. That's actually a really good finish for this material, in my opinion. But the way I made this was not just cut them to length and then do all the features and everything. I started off with a bar length here that was too long. I faced off both ends to give me a reference point to start my slot. Then I set it on some V-blocks and I mounted it in my milling machine with 2 toe clamps. I have a horizontal milling machine, so I work from the back side. Then I came in whatever distance, milled that slot to depth, stopping at whatever distance from the end. Then I started my hole pattern here. pierce that hole, pierce this hole, leaving myself some face room right here and some face room right here, and then started another hole, pierced it, and just worked my way down the line doing that very thing. Then I lopped them off into sections with my bandsaw. So I faced this one to length and this one to length, only on one side, and then faced these down to whatever that dimension was from the end on both sides, and that's how I completed those particular pieces. It's just a lot easier than trying to change out parts and set things up again when you're already there. Okay, now I'm going to turn my attention to these uprights here. Pretty straightforward. Once I show the completed piece, I will kind of outline my order of operations, or at least the ones that I used. Like I said, there are some features in here, some threaded holes that are not showing here, but they will be on the finished product. Okay, here's a shot of the completed uprights. I've got that there. I've got the hole threaded up in the bottom. A couple holes here for this bottom bracket, which fits right there. And then up the way, these two holes have been pierced and tapped, and that bracket goes right there. Now I made a mistake when I was making these, and I'm going to go ahead and show it. You see this extra set of holes right here? This is the one I started with. This is where my bracket was supposed to be based off of our design. Where I made the mistake is my hole location was right, but when I went to drill my tap drill size right here, I had another bit laying on my milling machine and I picked up the wrong one, so I drilled an oversized hole by accident. I was able to get around the mistake by simply raising the bracket up a 1/4 inch and then piercing new holes of the correct size and tapping those. Nobody is infallible, and when I make mistakes I try to point them out. It was just a mishap, an honest mistake there, and it almost ruined a piece. It does not make a difference. All it does is raise the glass up a 1/4 inch. So I was able to salvage this without having to start over. Alright, well, I'm going to describe my operations here that I did to make this particular part, as well as give a tip in for running out of travel on your milling machine table, but you don't want to lose your reference. Let's say if you're piercing a hole here and you need to pierce one here and there's not enough travel, if you release this out of this V-block, slide it down, move your table, whatever, it's a bear to try to get this parallel to the table surface again. So I'll describe that here in a moment, but basically I set them up in V-blocks. The first thing I did was mill this surface right here, and then I started working my holes. 2 holes here, threaded and tapped, and then 2 right here, threaded and tapped. Well, how did I do this? Well, number one, let's say I started with my milling machine and the cutter right here to cut this notch. The first thing I do is get it positioned. I use a small machinist square, and I set my V-block to the back of the table, or the front, depending on what you're doing, but I did it to the back in this case. And then I lock it down with toe clamps. But I leave myself room for one of these clamps right here. So I toe clamp here, toe clamp down on the other end. Reference the end of my part, come in and make my cut, and there we go. And now I want to walk up and do these two. Well, this is in the travel, so I'm able to just do that. But I want to do these down here, and I'm out of travel. At that point, what I do is I come in here and I stick this hold down on before releasing that toe clamp. And then I'll do the same thing on the back. So that will keep my part from turning while I move things. So I will release this toe clamp, leaving this tight for now. I will release the back toe clamp, slide my work down, line it back to the table again, lock my toe clamps. If I need to move this, I can leave this one toe clamp down, release this toe clamp, release this, slide the V-block down, lock it back in, and toe clamp it back. So now I can walk my way down the work to get to where I can do these features that I needed to do right here. It's just a simple way to do something like that. Alright, well here's just another idea on how you can flip parts around or move them around. This one pretty much is mandated that you be working on the center line of a part. But let's say I need to pierce 2 holes here and I need 2 down here that are well beyond my table travel. I'm going to put this piece of blue tape here just to reference these 2 features in the side that they're on, because we're going to do some flipping here and I'll show you what I mean. So in this case, we've got everything lined up, we've got our toe clamps on, and we make these 2 holes right there. I'm holding my toe clamps on the on the inside, and I'm doing that, and you'll see why. Before releasing the toe clamps, I'll put one of these horseshoe clamps on here just to keep the work in the position that it's currently in. And then I'll put one on the back end right here, but I'm going to leave it loose. At this point I will release my toe clamps. Now I'm going to take this, if it's long enough you can do it across the length of your table, but I use the width in this case. I'm going to set this on its side. I'm taking this one down here and I'm rotating it 180 degrees, just like this. So this is what we end up with right here. I'll lock this one down, just like so. Now I'm going to bring this around. This is the one that we just locked down. I'm going to set it towards the table. I'll turn this one over 180 now. Position the work back where you want it. Install your toe clamps and lock it down. And then at that point I take these off just to get them out of my way. But you can see now our tape is still facing the machine, but now we have access to this length down here, and we've not disturbed the parallelism between these holes and the table surface. Just another idea. Alright, well the feet are up now. I'm going to get these knocked out. There will be a counterbore hole up through the bottom of this. And that's in essence what it looks like. Very simple, very straightforward. Need 2 of these. Alright, well I've got the feet knocked out. Pretty simple and straightforward. Cut off my stock, faced them, came down, milled this section right here, a through hole, counterbore up from the bottom. Pretty straightforward. Toe clamped, milled that out, but I needed to reference 90 on this, and I don't have like a rotary indexer. So the way I did it after I milled this particular surface is let loose of the toe clamps and actually used another piece to reference it like that, and then installed the clamps back. Then I was able to come in and do that feature from the bottom right there. Alright, well, the cross brace is the last piece we're going to make here. This one's really straightforward. Simple piece of bar stock. There will be a counterbore hole up in this end, a threaded hole here for these feet to go on, and another counterbore hole right there. Alright, well, this is the final piece, the cross brace. Pretty straightforward stuff again. Faced off the end, came into whatever distance this was. A through hole and a counterbore. Came in another distance. This gets just a simple threaded hole. And down here the features are exactly the same. They're just on the other end. Alright, well, I've got these pieces fastened together. I needed to go ahead and put these brackets on in advance because I'm going to be lining this slot with this piece of wool. I'll glue it in there and then I'll trim it to fit, and that will help pad the glass to protect it. Now, she didn't want this painted or anything. She wanted it to look natural, so that's what we're going with right there. But because I machined the ends, it was a shiny surface. I used some Birchwood Casey Super Blue on that, just a dirty coat to try to make it a little splotchy to match the sides. Turned out pretty good if you ask me. It may be difficult to see, but I do have the wool installed here. I simply used a contact cement and coated the inner surface as well as the wool itself. Put it in, then trimmed it to fit. Same thing down here as well as the other side. Well, alright guys, there is the finished product. The stand itself is actually darker than what it appears in the viewfinder. I am ready to get this irreplaceable one-off piece of artwork out of my shop. Glass and me do not mix. So, this is ready to go up for auction. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching, and good luck.